Hello and welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us at the Retail Week Prospect virtual event. My name's Lisa Byfield-Green and I'm Head of Insight at Retail Week. Within this role, I also head up the Prospect content team. And traditionally, we've held in-person breakfast briefings for Prospect subscribers, but in these times where everyone's at home, we have a virtual event today for you instead. The retail industry, as we all know, has had its challenges, and over the past few weeks, we've seen changes that none of us expected to see in our whole lifetimes. We've seen 70% of shops that have been closed for an extended period during the enforced lockdown, and in the meantime, it's been like Christmas without warning for the grocers as they've stepped up to feed the nation. Everyone in the industry has been impacted during the enforced lockdown. Retail sales plummeted 19.1% in April, we hear today, which is the worst decline since records began in the mid-1990s. So as we try to navigate through this and we emerge blinking into the sun of the new reality that we're all trying to make sense of, we thought that it would be great to have a discussion to talk through this and really identify what it means for our is how post-pandemic partnerships will be critical to retail. We've got some great panelists today that I will be welcoming shortly to discuss this with me. We have Andy Harding, who is UK Managing Director at OpenPay. We have Dan Jarvis, who is Digital Director for Europe at AS Watson. And we have Dan Brazil, who is Customer Advocate at Bold 360. You can meet them in a moment, and please do start thinking about questions for the panel as we go through. You'll see on the right-hand side of your screens, there is a box that you can type your questions into, so please do those as you think of them. We'll have some time dedicated to these at the end of today's session. This session is being recorded and it will also be available on demand afterwards, so do feel free to share it with your colleagues. In the style of Prospect event, I plan to share a very short presentation with you and then we will get straight into our discussion. So hopefully you can all see my screen now. And the topic is about how post-pandemic partnerships will be critical to retail. If you remember this, some of the pre-COVID retail drivers that we were seeing. The retail industry for the last few years has really been driven by the needs and the desires of our customers and consumers. So some of the things that were driving retail forward pre-COVID-19 were value for money, curated experiences, and everybody wanting things faster. We've seen a really fast pace of change and it's been customer driven. So for example, we wanted more experiences in store. We've seen a move towards sustainability and we've seen some really rapid pace of change. So this slide is our Retail Week Prospect data showing you the top 20 retailers pre-COVID-19. They are still the top 20 retailers. And before the pandemic hit, the top 20 were challenged, but they were largely growing. And among the top 20, we're just starting to get some financial data in from their recent trading periods. It's been particularly interesting for those whose retail stores have been closed to see, what they're saying about their businesses. For example, Primark recently said that it saw very little effect on results in the first half of the year, but it expects trading in the second half to be radically different. However, Primark has been permitted to reopen its stores in Austria and the Netherlands over the last week or so, and to date, what it's seeing is lower footfall, spread evenly through the week, but with larger basket sizes. Kingfisher similarly reported the sales for the 3 months to the end of April were down by 14.7% in the UK, with B&Q down 22.1% and Screwfix edging down just 0.1%. But with a phased reopening of stores beginning, Kingfisher has noted a 2.7% improving sales trend in the first week of May. At John Lewis, commenting late in April, Chair Sharon White said that the department store division had been significantly affected through store closures, despite an 84% surge in online orders. And John Lewis is working to a worst case scenario of up to 35% sales decline at its department stores this year. But before all of this pandemic hit, we've been seeing some real polarization in terms of performances across the retail industry. I think what it highlights for us is really the need for retailers to be agile and to keep moving with the rapid pace of change. And those on the right-hand side of the screen experiencing the strongest like-for-like growth are among those who have been following a very agile strategy in the last year or so. And sadly, some recent administrations can be seen among those retailers on the left-hand side of the screen. In terms of the growth that we saw in the market, the fastest growing retailers, we ran a report on this using our prospect data, and the growth was largely coming from retailers that were digitally led, which I guess won't be a surprise to anybody listening on this call. Boohoo topped the list. It's a very agile business that has been investing in acquiring other retailers such as Karen Millen and Coast. It's also been investing in things like warehouse automation and e-commerce technology to grow its business. In a recent results update, despite the impact from the pandemic, boss John Little pointed to Boohoo's strengths as the ability to be agile and flexible. So, for example, Boohoo has been focused very quickly, pivoted to looking at athleisure as we all started working from home. One of the surprising retailers on a list like this is Amazon at number 9. It's such a huge retailer, but it's still growing way faster than the rest of the market. Sales in its first quarter jumped by 26%, showing its agility. And again, it was a retailer that responded very quickly at the beginning of the pandemic to change the items that it stocked and to change the way that it did business. However, even Amazon expects to incur significant charges in the second quarter as it invests in safety measures across its distribution centres and as well as its US Whole Foods stores. It's been continuing to innovate and partner, though, recently increasing its partnership with Morrisons. So that really nicely brings us on to the theme for today's event, really looking at partnerships. Partnerships have been driving retail forwards. We've seen some consolidation in the market, yes, but we've also seen a real growing trend for retailers to work together and also for retailers to partner with one another and with tech suppliers and startups in a bid to become more agile. So some examples that I just picked out for you here, the biggest one being M&S and Ocado's retail business, which will begin deliveries from September. But also we've seen examples like Boden partnering up with John Lewis on Click and Collect from its John Lewis and Waitrose stores. And this week, Pret a Manger launching a coffee range for people to buy from home, but exclusively on Amazon's platform. We've seen so many great examples of partnerships and innovation during the pandemic, and there are too many to call out. I mean, for instance, were very, very agile, realizing that they couldn't deliver to everybody. The big four grocers and Aldi introduced new services such as grocery boxes by post. Morrisons partnered with Deliveroo to help those who couldn't get an online delivery to get items delivered to them quickly during the crisis. And finally, my final example is, online queuing. Who ever knew that they would need online queuing software for their website? Something that perhaps none of us would have imagined. So really, that brings me to the end of what I wanted to present to you. And I'd like to now introduce our panelists and talk to them about what they're seeing in their businesses and how they feel partnerships are going to be critical to retail going forward. So I'd like to introduce you to our panel for today. I'd like to introduce, first of all, Dan Jarvis, Chief Digital Officer for Europe at A.S. Watson.
Hi,
Welcome,
Lisa.
Dan. Also, we have Andy Harding, who is UK Managing Director for OpenPay.
Hi, Lisa. How are you?
Hi, welcome, Andy. And our last panelist is Dan Brazil, who is Customer Advocate for Bolt 360.
Hello, good afternoon, Lisa.
Hello, good. I can see all of you. So thank you so much for joining us, all of you. A wealth of retail experience. And please, as you're listening to this event, don't forget to ask your questions on the right-hand side of the screen, because we're looking forward to hearing from all of you as to what you want to ask for our panelists. But I'd like to maybe start off. I'd like to start off actually with you, Dan Jarvis, as a retailer. You know, the majority of your stores in the UK continued to trade during the pandemic. I'm sure it's been a really challenging time for business. What innovations have you seen that have helped your business during this time? And also, you know, with a business headquartered in Asia, in Hong Kong, and stores across Europe, are there things that you've seen in other markets that have helped you? Have you been able to share expertise across different markets?
Hi, Lisa. Hi, all. Thank you very much for letting me participate in this. Yeah, it's a fascinating time whilst you're trying to keep your colleagues and customers safe. If you are able to trade, we've got big parts of the business across Europe that have had all of their stores completely shut down, some of their websites shut down. So we've been looking at partnering with technology companies to create new innovations, whether that be like a virtual service, so virtual makeup, online skin analyzers that we've been rolling out. We've got things like in the perfume shop, a virtual customer assistant that you can have a one-way video call with, and our partnerships with strong tech partners have allowed us to really do this at speed and at pace, and exactly what you were talking about around being agile and working to do that. Some other great examples around delivery. I mean, that's a major area for everybody right now in terms of whether you're a customer, you want to know where your product is, or whether you're a retailer, you're trying to ship it to customers as safely and as quickly as possible. And that's meant that within our Superdrug business, our Savers business, our Marionnaud businesses in Europe, we've introduced new delivery methods, whether that's a pick from store solution or whether that's a kind of a dark store solution. Those are the things that right now have really helped us, but they've only been possible because of the work and the partnerships we've built up. And if I'm honest, the partnerships that we had with our technology partners have only become stronger during this period because we've relied on each other much more heavily. And that's something that I don't see changing. I think we've built kind of some really strong partnerships that will last for quite a while right now, because we still will need and want to pull on each other's skills and resources. As a retailer, it means we don't have to know everything about it, and we don't have to keep developing the future ourselves. We can rely on partners to help work with us to do that.
Great, thank you. That's really, really full answer. And I'm sure that all the suppliers who are listening in will be very pleased to hear of those deep relationships that you're building up with your people that you're working with on tech. I'm going to come to you, Andy. Andy, you have the advantage of having transitioned from being a retailer to now being a supplier to the retail industry. So you can see both sides of these relationships. What are your thoughts on this, in terms of some of the trends that we just covered that we saw before COVID-19? Do you think some of these will accelerate? How have your relationships with retailers changed or developed during these times?
It's interesting. I think that you can really bucket the winners and losers through this whole pandemic into those that are adaptable and customer centric and those that aren't. It was easy to look at fashion retailers, for example, and there's been a number of fashion retailers who have unfortunately failed, and say, well, it's because no one's buying fashion right now. And yet, as you rightly pointed out just a minute ago, Boohoo very successfully pivoted their business into athleisure and athleisure, because they're able to respond to customer demands very, very quickly. And that's what customers want right now. And so they're able to pivot that. And that's about having the right supply chain, the right technology, and the right partnerships, as you say. I think the businesses that are really thinking and are able to be customer centric are the ones that will come out of this well. I really like Dan's example of delivery mechanisms and using stores as fulfillment centers. I've seen a lot of that in discussions we've had with partners and prospects of businesses who have had to close their stores, but seeing demand for their product increase dramatically. I mean, you also mentioned B&Q and Kingfisher as part of the Kingfisher group, and their products, I imagine, are very heavily in demand right now as people are staying at home. And so they've had to close their stores, but then but I understand they're using those stores as fulfillment centers for local deliveries. And I think that's really clever. If you're able to do that, you're able to, again, pivotability, if you like. If you're able to do that, that's gonna yield great success over this period of time, or however long this period of time is.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I completely agree with you, and I think some great examples that we've seen in terms of what Superdragon Savers have been doing. I'm going to come to you now, Dan B. We've seen some great partnerships, as Andy mentioned, between retailers and suppliers. Seeming to see an acceleration of some of these initiatives in recent weeks. Do you see this as a trend, and do you have any examples from your own business of things that you've partnered on with retailers recently?
Yeah, absolutely. But let me start by saying, yes, statistics you mentioned at the beginning are cause for concern. Of course, 19% down in terms of the amount spent on retail. But let us remember that we've seen a 58% increase in April in digital spend, and 49% of those people who are spending online have never done so before. This is the first time they've managed to get through some of the perceived impossibilities that prevented them from doing so prior to that. So we have seen a step change, obviously, in those who were ready for online to capitalize on this moment. And those who weren't necessarily so well placed to do that are playing catch up very quickly as we adjust to what is going to be a new modus operandi. And one such example came to me about 3 weeks ago. And I think the responsibility of a vendor right now is to look at how you can help your customers and be malleable when they need it. So we brought forward at Bold a particular innovation that we were going to be releasing later in the year, and to package it up so that it could be very quickly, rapidly adopted. And we were speaking with part of the Kingfisher group. I know Kingfisher been mentioned already in Iberia, Brico Dépôt Spain came to us because they had to launch e-commerce at breakneck speed. They went from not having e-commerce to shutting down all of their stores to opening up an e-commerce facility, but not being able to service the customers. You can imagine the wealth of questions that were coming in. And so very quickly, they deployed our solution, which was the quickest turnaround I've ever seen, because I've been working with big organizations and they normally have the turning circle of an oil tanker, if I'm being honest. We went from introduction to demo to signature to deployment in under 48 hours. Late on Friday afternoon, we deployed it. By Saturday afternoon, they had the first insight from it. So things can move really quickly right now, and I've seen that firsthand, yes.
Okay, great, thank you. That's a brilliant example. I think of what we were saying about speed of change. It seems to be accelerating. Coming back to you, Dan J. Within your business, I'm imagining that you're having to implement a lot of changes very quickly. So is speed something that's very important to you when you're dealing with suppliers? And also from other markets, are there lessons that you're taking from markets that are perhaps ahead of us in terms of coming back to some kind of normality, across Asia? Are there things from other markets that you can implement quickly across businesses in Europe?
Yeah, I mean, that's been a really big, both internally for us as a business, whether it be the office and our kind of colleagues and teams and stores and how we could do things. Getting the learnings from our Asia business has been invaluable to us, but also across Europe, as we're all kind of bunched up and we're all at a different phase of dealing with this, whether or not we're kind of going in right in the middle of it or coming out of it. So things like, and all of it's got to relate back to the customer behavior and what customers are wanting. So the idea that customers are going to come back into a busy, hustling, bustling shop and be happy with that is pretty much gone. So thinking about, okay, so how do we do this for a customer? And so one of the suggestions was a booking tool. So we go back to kind of the good old days where you almost booked an appointment to come and do your retail shop, and now we're really, and we've just launched that to some of our European businesses. So out in Switzerland and in Italy, where customers are starting to return to stores, and we're doing much more engagement with customers. So I think some of the things that Andy and Dan was talking about, that we're really focusing on what customers want much more than we've ever done. So it's not about trying to sell them something, it's about genuinely trying to have a conversation and listen to what they've got to say. And I think that's the big piece, along with being able to act at pace, is about making sure you're actually solving a customer's problem with the solution you've got, not necessarily coming up with what you think is the best solution. Being able to implement that at pace is again all important. It's no good. The booking tool that I talked about was through a partner that we could implement within 72 hours. Because if it had been something that we needed to do 3 months, 3 weeks worth of work, then it was never going to work for us. So I think those are the kind of partnerships that are going to be created, where we're looking for speed on both sides. And as Dan said, bigger companies can sometimes be a bit slow about this, but right now we're able to get things done really quickly because of the investment that's gone on in the background and the infrastructures that we've got available to us. So right now is really a good time to be a partner and come with that solution at pace to us.
Dan, can I ask a question just on that subject? Do you find that in this time when you need to act at pace, the level of the decision making internally is much quicker? There seems to be less red tape, less bureaucracy around making a decision to move forward with a new solution or a partnership. Is that the case?
Yeah, I mean, I spent, being a kind of global business, I spent quite a lot of my time before this on video calls, and I didn't think it was necessarily possible to do more video calls, but oh my God, every call we do is a video call. So we're all much more connected to each other, and we're constantly having these conversations. So if I need a decision made by my boss in Hong Kong, they're on the end of the WhatsApp within minutes with this sort of stuff. So it's really simple to get these things done right now, and the bureaucracy of organizations has been really broken down because we're just able to talk to each other. And if it's something that's going to benefit a customer and could be that we can engage with our customers and our colleagues and our teams better, then we can do these things really quickly. And I think that's definitely something that we're taking away as a business as to how can we carry that forward as and when we come to the other side of all of this across the world.
Great answer. So coming to Andy and Dan B. Dan, I'll start with you. If you're a supplier to the retail industry, what do you think are the real conversations that you need to be having right now with your retail clients?
Yeah, are you able to listen to your customers, and are you able to answer your customers' questions? So my background is in contact center transformation, and I think it's probably no secret that contact centers have taken a hammering. They've had to relocate, they've had to furlough a lot of people, and companies are now looking to deflect away a lot of the inbound routine type FAQ inquiries and to try and automate a lot more. So we're seeing an acceleration of innovation. And I'm looking to, there's two types of people that I'm speaking to at the moment. Actually, no, there's only one type of person that I'm speaking to. The first one doesn't want to speak to me. And that's the first person who says, not right now, Dan. I'm just going to wait for it to get back to normal. You know, wait for this thing to blow over. We're really busy at the moment, and you know, don't bug me now. Just, you know, it's almost like they're on a roller coaster, really hating it. But then again, there's some people who love roller coasters, and I'm not suggesting for a moment we would like to be here, but you have to seize this moment. Now is the time to accept that we're not going back to normal, and that we have to innovate. And this isn't going to right itself in the way that some people would like to hope it would, you know. So whatever cards you've been dealt, whatever sector you're in, I think there's the potential to innovate, the potential to develop and do what's right by your customer. And so the people that I'm speaking to right now are those who actually haven't furloughed some people in R&D and innovation, which I thought was really strange when I was trying to touch base with some of my some contacts that I've been speaking to, and they said, I can't speak to you now, I've been furloughed. I thought, but you're the very kind of person that shouldn't be furloughed at this particular moment, because it's innovation which is going to lead you out of this. And so those are the kinds of people that I think who are going to be receptive to this. And for my, you know, particular area of looking at customer contact, customer experience, automation, and then connecting with people when it's the right place to do that, then, you know, those are the kind of functions that I think are quite hot at the moment to approach.
Yeah, I agree with you, Dan.
And you're nodding along to that.
Yeah. Sorry, I was just going to say, Lisa, I didn't mean to cut you off, and I apologise. I was nodding in total agreement. I think, you know, businesses right now, then we're talking to, you know, a lot of prospects and clients who are in different spaces, and some of them are really struggling and are realize that to do nothing right now and expect a different outcome is not the right answer. That innovation is important, but getting the innovation right and their attitude towards return on investment is perhaps sharpened somewhat because of the need to preserve cash and manage cash. And there are others that see this as an opportunity to capture market share, really grow their business significantly, and so they're looking to innovate as well. So there's very different conversations going on, but all with a general consistent theme, which is about being able to respond to customers. And I think that, you know, we're a fintech, and we're in the credit space, and many customers right now are struggling with cash and income. You mentioned furlough already, and a lot of customers on furlough. So the opportunity to defer payments and to manage their cash flow more effectively is really important to customers. So we've seen, you know, our phones ringing a little bit off the hook in the last few weeks, which has been great. And as I say, the conversations have been really positive. It's how quickly can you do it? Not really the usual conversations about how much. It's more how quickly.
Great. And again, you know, I think it comes down to that polarization across the industry of, like everybody has been saying, and you, Dan, said this too, you know, those who are kind of in firefighting mode and just trying to get things back to normal versus those who maybe see this as an opportunity while stores are closed to try a few new things and to get things ready for when you know they can go back to trading again. You know, it is a real opportunity to try a few new things and to get ahead. It brings us on to some questions that are coming in from our audience, and this one I think I'm going to then put to you first, Dan J. How do you feel about innovation? You know, is there real demand for innovation right now from retailers?
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely think there is. We're not suggesting, and from an AS Watson perspective, we haven't stopped any of our innovation projects. And if I'm honest, I've probably seen more innovation from the tech and the commercial content teams that I run in the last kind of 8 weeks than we have. And the draw from the business is bigger as well, the adoption of new technology. So we run various kind of innovation kind of teams that are looking at new innovations and putting those into the kind of deployment pipelines and all those kind of cliched kind of words. But I've never seen the business actually adopt to technology as quickly and as widespread, because right now is the opportunity, and providing the innovation is matched to what a customer's demand or desire is, then there's absolutely a call for that innovation. So for me, if you're a partner out there or a potential partner looking to kind of work with us or work with other retailers, just make sure that you're really focused on how this is going to benefit and help the end customer of our business. And I think that's the real key point for me.
Okay, great. We just got another question in. So around that, how can you be listening to customers and understand what they want? How can you encourage feedback during these times where, things aren't really normal? How do you get a feel for what it is that customers want and what they're looking for? Andy, I'm going to ask.
Oh, sorry.
All right, sorry.
Go on, Andy.
Well, to put my retailer hat back on, and I think, and so
Yeah.
I think about the end customer as opposed to my current business customers. I think, you have to. There's lots of mechanisms to listen to customers. You've got all the customer-facing touch points within your business, and your contact center, the cold face of the business, where the stores are closed. The contact center becomes one of the most important channels to be able to listen to customers and get feedback. And you have to have excellent mechanisms for capturing customer sentiment and I guess there's customer challenges. What are customers feeling right now? There are products out there that do that, that capture it in a sophisticated scientific way, and you can measure CSAT and NPS, etc. That's certainly one mechanism. And if you're heavily invested in analytics solutions and behavior analytics solutions, you can look at what customers are doing and infer things from that perspective as well. Talking to customers is the most important thing, and listening to customers in that way. And when your stores are closed, if you're a multi-channel business, I should say, and your stores are closed, that closes that door. And so, often from my days at House of Fraser and Carving Warehouse, etc., we would spend a lot of time talking to our store staff and our store leadership about the sorts of themes that were coming through from customers. And now that channel's closed, you have to make sure you're tuned into the other areas where customers are still engaging with you and talking to you. And I think, as I say, contact center is one important one. Social media clearly is the other important channel where customers do share and engage in the public forum, and you've got to be very tuned into what's going on with their context, because the world has changed so dramatically, but it's changed in very different ways for very many different people, and you've got to be tuned into those different customer segments that you've got. And your customer segments from 12 or 3 months ago, your understanding of those customers will be materially different now in many cases than it was before. And so your insight team and your data team are become very, very important, and even more important than they were before.
Right, so everything moving at a really rapid pace. Got a question for Dan Jarvis coming in from our audience. Are you finding now that you're having stronger partnerships with fewer suppliers?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Within AS Watson, we started about 3 years ago a kind of more formal technology partnership where we wanted to work with kind of a consolidated group of tech suppliers, so who understood our infrastructure and architecture and understood our business, and therefore could kind of work with us on that. And we've continued that, and we've built those deeper partnerships. But what certainly over the last kind of 3 months or so is teaching me is that you can keep to that, and you can keep those kind of a more dedicated group of partners, but for real new innovative stuff, you might have to go elsewhere, and you might have to look a bit wider and find people or businesses or partners that are really good at one specific thing, and then look at how you adopt that into your business. So I think we still have a core of partners that we're being more dedicated to, and we're looking to pull on them for support and guidance. But if it's looking at kind of real new innovation stuff, I think we are really open to kind of opening up the doors to a few more partners, really. Yeah.
Right. Okay, fantastic. Another question from the audience, kind of along the similar theme. What do we think as a panel will make a retailer choose between one partner and another? I'm going to ask that to you, Dan Brazil, first of all.
Well, I can speak from some of the successes that I have had, and it's not about using your own vernacular or your own terminology or your own product speak. I think that much is really self-evident in the gratitude that I've had from people I've spoken to, having prepared myself adequately enough and done research before you start to engage with people. Understanding what it's like to be a customer, put yourselves in their shoes. Now, I work with a lot of retailers where I am actually a customer. I will take the time to do an audit of a potential prospect's website first of all, and in a polite, slightly humorous way sometimes, point out where there's some deficiencies, and if you were to do this, then that. I'm a big disbeliever that just sending a PDF en masse is ever going to really jolt people into activity. I think it's about understanding the persona, understanding what keeps, it's a cliche, but what keeps people up at night. What if we were to do this, what could we do tomorrow? What could we do to ensure our future viability time a year from now? And looking at where we could innovate and add value. And I have always been, I guess, self-styled as not a sales guy, but a customer advocate. And I take that really seriously, because by that I mean I am your advocate to bring your side of the case into my business. I work for a big business, log me in, and there's lots of people. You need to have an advocate. I need to be able to help you, and introduce you to the executive team, make sure that you've got a voice at the table. So that's what partnership really means. You need to have an advocate. And I'm often selling into my organization as much as I'm selling in externally to potential customers. And when you've got that really good, sometimes positive friction, you could do some really good stuff. And I've seen been privileged to have been part of some really good transformation initiatives over the years with that attitude and that mindset.
Great, thanks. So someone else on the call has pointed out the challenges. I guess even when stores open, because there will be fewer people able to pass through stores at one time, the costs of running those stores will remain the same. Where's the profitability, and what does the equation look like going forward? Are we going to see more emphasis on online and digital, or solutions around how to try to manage those people in and out of the store? How do we see it playing out? I'm going to come to Dan Jarvis, because perhaps you might have some thoughts from other markets that are starting to open up already.
Yeah, I mean, we ran, it partly answers one of your questions earlier. We ran some listening to customers through either social listening, or we ran with our own kind of CRM customers, a survey across Europe, 20,000 responses. Almost all of them said they would return to a store, physical store, but equally 80% of them said they would continue to shop online. And as us as a retailer, our mission is about building an online plus offline kind of business. We don't talk about multi-channel or omni-channel, because that's not really what a customer says about it. It's about having that online plus offline business together, so that the two are working in complementary ways, so that you can do one and the other, and it's whatever suits you. So I absolutely think customers will return. I think that the experience and behavior is going to be different. If you're going to buy makeup, are you going to want to touch a tester? Possibly not. So we're going to need to provide you with a virtual version of that, maybe through an app or through your phone or something like that. So what we will do as retailers is look to be creative to, again, help solve customers' challenges and issues, so that our customers can stay safe shopping with us, either online or offline, and our staff and colleagues can stay safe being able to serve those customers. And I think that's the big focus. But I definitely think customers want to shop both physically, and I think they will also continue to shop online as well. And it's about making sure that they're complementary to each other, not working against each other.
Great. Okay. Another question that's come in for the panel, and this is a bit more of a difficult one, because I think that in terms of timings, we probably don't know what's going to happen here. But anyone got anything that they would say to retailers who are working, for example, in travel hubs at the moment, in terms of things that they could be thinking about or getting behind right now where everything's quiet?
The silence
Andy,
from everybody tells everything.
Yeah, it's a really difficult question.
Look, I think that there's going to be a shift. This is a personal view, right? I think there will be a different social contract between, you know, business and its employers, and I think there'll be a different relationship going forward. I think there will still be the need to come together in an office environment, but at the frequency it was before, perhaps, you know, that will change. That will be one of the areas that will change. I think people's attitude towards public transport will also change for a period of time. Whether it remains that way, you know, once a vaccine comes, I don't know whether we go back to normal or not. I don't have the ability to look that far ahead, but I think certainly the convenience type retail that became such a big thing very, very quickly over the last few years, aligned, you know, a lot around people's travel. I think that's an area that will struggle for a long period of time now because of the frequency of which people will be moving around. And I think in terms of how do those businesses survive, I don't have the answer to that. I think they, you know, clearly doing what everyone else is doing right now, which is focus on digital, focus on your customer, and understand what your customer needs are from the products, clearly the product category you're selling. If you're selling luggage in a travel location, yeah, you really are in trouble. If you're selling cookware in a convenient location, travel hub, then you've probably still got a product that people want, and so therefore your digital offering is still relevant, and therefore, you know, investment in products that drive AOV or reduce returns, etc. You know, then those are the things that you'll be focused on. Tough question, that one. I think if you are one of those retailers, then you know, it's a real challenge for you right now, just because of just the sheer number of footfall, the customers on the move.
Okay, we've got time for one final question from the audience then. Dan Jarvis, I'm going to ask this one to you. It's kind of coming back to a common theme, but somebody's asking, you know, what do you think is most likely to make a retailer choose between one supplier and another during these challenging times?
Well, I don't think it comes down to one thing. We're a retailer, so one of the things will be cost, ultimately. We've got rents, we've got our wage bills to pay, and therefore that's a big cost we still will maintain. So cost is going to be important to us, but it's not the be all and end all. There's then about the speed at which we can deliver things, and both our speed and your speed as to how fast we can work together on something. So looking at those kind of common agility pieces. And I think the other thing after that comes into it is the fit in terms of whether or not you're getting it. I think it was Dan was talking about it, that whether or not you as a partner or a vendor can really understand our business, that really knows our business, that has taken the time to understand that in this there is a specific problem or challenge for a Superdrug or Savers or perfume shop, and this is how I can help you solve that, and this is what I think it can be. So I think you've got to grab every single opportunity, and if you're a technology partner or looking to be a partner with a retailer, you've got to look at every single thing you can do to give you that advantage over potential competitors. And if it is about finding more about the business, then do it. That will make a difference to us.
Fantastic. Just before we finish, I'm going to ask everybody to think about this last question. If you had to share one word to describe how retailers and suppliers are going to be working together post COVID-19, what would it be? I'll come to you first, Dan Brazil.
Collaboratively.
Okay, thank you. Andy.
Well, that was the word I was going to choose, Dan. So
thank you.
Adaptively, I can't think of another one. You've said exactly it. I think collaboratively is spot on.
There's something in that. There's something in that. We've both chosen the same one. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely collaboratively, flexibly. Yeah. And Dan.
And that's exactly the same for me as the retailer here. We're looking for collaboration. We want genuine partnership and collaboration with each other.
I throw in a bit of empathy as well.
Empathy, that's a good word as well. Yeah, fantastic. Well, thank you so much. I think we've got a lot of really valuable insight out of this session. I'd really like to thank our panelists once again, Dan Jarvis, Andy Harding, Dan Brazil. Thank you so much, and thank you to all of you for listening. Thanks
Your
very
pleasure.
much.
Thanks very much. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye.